Welcome to Hall Pass Sessions. This is your all-access Hall Pass to what the legends of the game are talking about. Legends from the Hall of Fame, the PBA, the PWBA, and the best that youth bowling has to offer. Hall Pass Sessions, complete with positive thoughts and a tip or two to help. And of course, legends to host. Now, here's Hall of Famers Carolyn Dorin-Ballard and Leanne Barrett-Hulsenberg. This is Hall Pass Sessions.
Okay, I'm starting to bop really early. Hi, everybody. It's Carolyn Dorin-Ballard, and we are Hall Pass number 4. Thank you so much for joining us. We got a little bit of a different show today, as I will have a guest host with me. My pal Leanne is on vacation with her beautiful son, Barrett, as they explore the East Coast. I think they might be checking out some colleges. So this week's host with me is a Storm employee, loves social media. She is a bowler. She is funny. She is kind. She is witty. She has a great laugh. But I think the best thing about her is she's a fantastic sister, is she is a theater buff. So I want my host today to come into this. I would like to welcome Blair Blumenscheid to Let It Go, Let It Go. And now I'd like her to please tell me what play we're talking about. Where are you, Blair?
Frozen. Very nice. I love it.
Let it go, can't hold it back anymore.
It's true.
Anyway,
that's a classic. Yeah, very nice.
I'm telling you. You know, I was actually going to do something from Wicked, and I'm like, oh no, I kind of like this one. But huge theater buff, which I am so intrigued by, because I love the theater myself. I also know you love to travel, right?
Yes.
So what's one of your favorite plays?
Shoot, it's so hard to pick. I used to be able to answer really, really quickly, but now there's so many different types of plays. Hamilton has to be up there because it's just so different than everything else. And I think it's a really good entry for people into theater now because it's more modern music. But my favorite musical of all time is a very not a well-known musical, and I'm waiting for it to retour. It won a Tony, but it's called Once. And so this musical, and there was a movie that it's based on, but I never saw the movie. But it's literally two people on stage the whole time, a boy and a girl. They have no names. It's just man and woman, and it's this love story. But the thing they do that's different is the band is completely on stage with them, and then before the show, they used to open it up, and you would walk on stage and there would be a live bar, because this show happens in a bar restaurant, and it's just it's the most intriguing show I've ever seen. So it's not
no, but the way you say it segues right into what we're talking about. It's unique.
Yes,
right,
100%.
And that's why I love the theater. And by the way, I have a soft spot for it because I come from a musical family. My one cousin's daughter, super musically talented. My mother was talented. I played the clarinet and the saxophone, was in plays. My sister played the flute and the piano. And I think the arts get left out.
Yes.
Kind of like women's bowling.
Yes.
So I thought that was a great segue into my first comment of the day that I like to chat with. We're going to kind of rehash a little bit here, Blair. I don't think we need any notes, but I want to take a quick second to just recap our newest queens, Josie Barnes, who's already competing in Cleveland, which is why we couldn't have our champion here today. But let's talk about a few of the hot players out there and a couple of the players that haven't quite lit the match yet. Do you have anybody in mind? Because if not, I can start.
Well, I'm pulling up the roster, but I did right before the show started. I was looking at the roster for this week because I had a feeling that there would be some players from my home state, Ohio, that might be bowling this weekend, and I didn't get deep enough. But Cassidy Curry has not really shown out very much yet.
Yes.
But I think she's one to watch. I really do. I'm a big Cassidy fan.
Huge Cassidy fan. I'm
Yeah.
a huge Miranda Pattison she
Yes.
bowled good at the Queens, lost a tough match. Love that her game is simple. She keeps it in play. But I got to tell you there's two. There's two, actually. Stephanie Johnson has not.
Yeah, she hasn't. Yeah, you're right.
Yep, she's a sneaky little one. She bowled good at the Queens, but she's a sneaky little one. I'm expecting great things from her. And Joe Hansen.
Yes.
Two hands.
Yes.
I think the first couple weeks for her were more about getting acclimated with the climate of what's going on. Used to formats, bowling tournaments instead of a league type setting. And she got stronger as the week went on. So I feel as if, now I'm not saying it's going to be this week, but this is 3 tournaments in one. I think it's going to give her a little bit more of a lay of the land as to what it takes to be a PWBA member. And I'm telling you, before the end of the swing, I think we're going to see her in the top, running for a TV show.
Yeah, I was just at the SYC last weekend, and Eric Krause and I were in the live stream booth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Nora came up, and we were talking about her because we both think that she is one of the top players out there, and she just has to get, like you said, right? She has to get her feet wet. She has to figure out the format, the traveling, the bowling so many games back to back, right? There's just some things that you kind of have to feel out. So I agree she's one to show up. And then I do know that Caitlin Stoll was leaving the SYC, and she's on the roster for this week. Yeah.
I agree. And I think next week when Leanne is back, and I'll intro that later, but I know she's going to talk a little bit about youth bowling next week.
Yeah.
Which they're going to talk about the youth players out there.
So many.
Definitely a force to be reckoned with as youth bowling is growing, which segues me into, as much as I love women's bowling, as much as I want to be positive, what is happening at the collegiate women's ranks? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's unique to just bowling. I think that collegiately, colleges just in general are having, like higher ed is having some issues. Like, you mentioned my sister in the intro, who I love dearly. And she just graduated college. She studied music for 4 years. And she was at a very creative arts-based school. And they were having some impacts just from some lack of finances. Some of the professors were losing their tenure or getting cut, moving to part-time. So, but I cannot believe that we lost a program two programs that have national championships. That one is astonishing to me.
Okay, so that's what I was going with that. I always feel, and I've always had heartstrings, we've already talked about this, the arts always get cut first. I don't care what school you're at. The arts always seem to take a beating somewhere. We have Mount Mercy, who's now NAIA with the men. That changes. I believe you can accept money now. Programs being cut. Weber International Champion, USBC Collegiate Champion. I'm sorry, ITC, correct?
Yes.
Stephen F. Austin, NCAA champ in their first few years.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not as if these aren't strong programs that not only brought women who may not have come to college in the United States, number one, with Weber, because it was more of an international school, correct? Then you have people like Stephen F. Austin from all over the country winning championships, always in the hunt to compete to get to nationals, and their programs out of nowhere, and again, get cut. One being in the state of Texas, which I can speak on. Of course, I think it is state funded as well. There's a lot that goes into it. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty of it,
for sure. Yeah.
but by all means, it does impact from nationwide down to statewide as to what is most important to a university. And I, for one, because this is a hall pass, which means we get a hall pass on when we tell you our opinion that many may not agree upon. But I am tired of women's sports always being first on the chopping block, or one of the first few to be on the chopping block. For as many strides as we make with Title IX and the growth of women's collegiate bowling, it's things like this that then put us two steps back. And let me ask you your opinion, Blair. Do you think this is going to be a trend, or do you think there might be a halt and we may not see anything for a while? It'll be a lull.
Shoot, I don't know. It's crazy because on both sides, right? You work with kids that want to be recruited by a college, but then you've also been through it with your daughter Alyssa, and you know what a tough process recruitment is. Yeah,
Yeah,
and right,
hard.
yeah. I mean, and if we go back even further, not even looking at recruiting, just picking a college, right? If you take bowling out of it completely and just are working with your teenager and saying, okay, what schools do we want to look at, right? That process is hard. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if we go back a few years, and I don't know how many years it was now, but Notre Dame College, what it used to be a pretty big
Yes.
bowling program. Chris Vi went there.
Mhm.
I was in
Yes.
college. We competed against them a lot because they were in Ohio, and that whole school is gone. The school's closed. So
Right.
I don't know what's going on. I would caution, I would say to everyone, and I mean, the SFA one was shocking. It really was.
Right.
But I think if you can do as much research as you possibly can on the funding of the university and how the sports are funded, and someone was telling me over the weekend, whether the sports are funded through boosters or whether they're not, all of these things are important. But we do go back to the basics, right? You and I talk about it. Every college coach that I talk to, the first question they ask a kid is, what do you want to major in, right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
and as much as bowling, college bowling is the best 4 years of your life. I don't care. If you have a good team chemistry and you get into those moments where your team's working together, you'll never have that again. The only thing that's close is maybe the women's championships or the open championships. But you just have to go back to that first question, because if something like this happens at a school, I'm heartbroken for the freshmen at these schools. I'm just those kids I'm heartbroken for. But
Me too.
and not that I'm not heartbroken for the seniors, because that's terrible too. Because going into your last year, you think you're going to give it your all. You think you're going to have one last shot at whatever nationals, whatever you want to do. But hopefully you did pick the school that you wanted to major in, and you can continue on that and then figure out what you want to do bowling, right? So I think this just shows us again, that's the most important thing when you're
I agree.
in school.
I agree 100%. 100%. I kind of want to keep discussing that, but before we go to our chat, do we want to take a minute and play our little tip of the week?
For sure. This is a good one.
Hey, what is one of the things you always tell your SYC kids? What's most important?
Well, we actually say that Della and Carolyn always say to make your spares.
All right, let's see what we learn about spare shooting.
Hi friends, Diana Savyalova here, PWBA champion. Our PWBA tour starts next week, so I feel very sharp. But the reason is why I feel sharp is because I've been using my practice very wisely. And right now I only have 7 days to get ready for the tour, so of course I'm making sure that my spare game is on point. I know it can be very boring to practice your spares, but spare shooting is just as important as striking.
So we're very fortunate at City View Lanes, the machines you can set up your spares. So if you're getting ready for a big tournament, which that was taped a few weeks ago, and as you know, Diana has bowled pretty good the last couple of weeks, you can set the spares up, especially the ones you have the most trouble with, and you can shoot them 10 times, 5 times, 15, 25, however many times you want. So it's a great tool to have. And if your bowling center has that ability, I would take full advantage of that, full advantage.
100%.
Yes. Do we have anything in the chat yet, Blair?
Everyone's just saying hey to you.
Hey,
Travis did comment sad stuff about the collegiate programs being cut. Yeah, just sadness,
Yeah.
right?
Well, one of the things I want to reiterate before we get on to our next topic is I agree with you in such a manner. When you are looking at a college program, bowling's always going to be there. But the college has to meet your educational need. Bowling is your bonus. It's something you love, it's your passion, and it's helping you get that education. But I think sometimes we get caught up in it and we think of the sports first, and that's only natural because really that's what America's built on sometimes is the football and the baseball, and that's just the way it is, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said that. There's a lot of information on bowl.com. You can also go to the Coaches 10-Pin Association website. They have a lot of questions. And when it comes to your state and you're dealing with high school bowlers, go to your state association and find out what some of the rules, regulations are, events that are around where they can meet some of these college coaches. I know Recruit Us goes around the country where they come to you, not only coach a little bit and give some seminars, but really teach the kids and the parents what it's all about when choosing that collegiate program that will meet the educational need and the bowling need. So that's some great advice. Okay,
Carolyn, really
controversy.
quick before we
Oh,
move on, sorry. Katie
what?
did agree with what you said about Title IX, and she wanted to add that we have to figure out how to continue to advocate for women's sports.
Absolutely, 100%. And one of my idols is Billie Jean King. Alyssa always says, "Let me guess, Mom, you're going to talk about Billie Jean King." Yes, I am, because without Billie Jean King, I didn't have my career, let alone everybody who's come after me. So, and she just continues to grow women's sports with supporting the WNBA, starting the Women's Hockey League. I mean, you name it, she's doing it. What I would like to reiterate, and thank you, Katie, for that, is we all need to do our part in some way. I'm not saying it's going to be on a grand scale, and I'm not saying we're going to be out there like Billie Jean King, but there are ways that we as a bowling community, and especially as women bowlers, can help this cause. So anything you see on social media that is a positive, when dealing with what Title IX is and some sports, women's sports like in softball that's now hopefully growing, and field hockey is growing. Share that. Share that with as many people as you can, because someday we will have the boosters and the people, the alumni really putting in the money to the sport we love. But the only way we can do that is in a positive light and by sharing what we see and with others that may not know. And hopefully that's the way we can grow it.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go with controversy though. Come on.
Oh man, this is a big one.
Let's go.
All right.
Yeah.
Cliff Barnes
All
just
right.
entered the chat, so that should be good.
Hey, Cliff, say something.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's talk about and be honest. String pins versus traditional bowling. Let's go. Do you want to start? Because I got my notes right here.
Well, you have all the educational notes. I will say but now I have not bowled very much this year. I had an injury last year, and I've been kind of coming back from that injury, and I'm getting ready to bowl women's nationals. Like that's been my goal all year. But they didn't, as you know, they did an install at Storm. We have one free fall and one string pin. And I have practiced on the string pin. Mm-hmm. And the first time that I bowled on it, I was expecting to notice more of a difference for me, and I didn't. But that being said, down the controversy route, I'm not the sharpest of all bowlers, but I didn't notice that much.
Okay. So, I wanted to have him on tonight too, and everybody's bowling. Senior tour is going on. Yeah. Men's nationals is going on. PWBA. So over the next few weeks, we will definitely have some of these people back on to talk. But I reached out to John Janowitz, who by far is one of the best bowlers prior to him even being a senior. 100%. He's one of the best amateur bowlers ever to put on a pair of shoes. He is just killing them out there on the senior tour, and he's bowled a lot of events on string pins. So I reached out to him to find out what his take was on the string pins. And he has a lot here, and I'm actually going to ask him if I could post some of this in a bullet point. You'll find it on my page. I won't use Storm's page, or I may put it underneath our whole pass when we're
for sure.
replaying this. I will have it in the comments section. I just don't want to sit here and read everything, but there's a couple of things that stuck out to me that John mentioned. In 21 games in 2 days, he feels you do get a few string strikes, but I only remember 3 of them in 21 games where he felt the strings actually did something. Okay. The other thing was, he said, I actually like them for competitive play because you don't get as many cheap hits. You need to hit them a little more flush, and you have to pay attention. And I thought this was extremely important. You have to pay more attention to front to back ball motion to strike. Now, I love that comment because I agree with that. I don't think it's a lot of side to side. You're not looking for balls to hook this much or this much into the pins is what I should say. I just wanted you to be able to see it on camera. I do think it's more of that front to back ball motion to really watch how that ball is entering the pocket to not have the strings come into effect, or get that, for me, it would be a flat 10 or the blower 7 is what I saw. So I loved that comment because I think it tells you that possibly when you're on string pins, you may want to watch your ball motion differently. If you do it, side to side instead of front to back. Your thoughts?
Well, I cannot. So Mike Sinek, he works with our staff at Storm. He does our staff shows every Tuesday. He is like a super bowling fan, right? He's coached for years. He works in a pro shop. Mike is the guy that if you want to talk bowling, he will talk for hours and hours.
All day.
Yes.
All day.
And
Great guy, by the way.
He's fantastic. And he helps at the SYCs now. He works with a lot of the youth players. And he told the staff after Mr. EJ Tackett's run this year that to remember that EJ practices on strengths.
Right.
And his ball roll, Mike has this theory that his ball roll has changed this year. If you watch his ball motion, right? Now, I know he's not a Storm team member, but he
he's
had
the number one bowler in the world. We can't take that away from him, right?
phenomenal,
Great
right?
bowler.
Yeah,
Yes.
great person, all of everything. So I think anyone that is I guess a hater, I get, or like a disbeliever. I wouldn't say it's a hater yet, right? It's disbelief because they just don't.
No buy-in. No
Yeah,
buy-in.
right. And so I think just think about that, right? And Cliff Barnes in the chat, he brought up something that is a real thing in our industry. He said that the new strings are great. It's a no-brainer for new installs due to cost savings and lack of training of the new mechanics, which is 100% true in our industry. So if you're a fan of bowling, you have to be a little bit of a fan of strings because it's going to keep these bowling centers going.
Right. And you know, here's what I always thought. It's the same thing like what everybody said about two-handed bowling. Look, there's a place for everybody and there's a place for everything, right? If you're not a fan of string, then you just don't bowl on them, right? You have 10 pin traditional to be able to go and bowl. I'm not either way on it. I think I do probably leave the flat 10 a little more. I did have to pitch it a little more out onto the lane to get my ball to finish a little bit harder. Once I did that, it was fine. It was fine. And I was just, I just went back and read the 2023 report from USBC. And again, USBC has some great information on there. I think it's also been updated since that, and that I couldn't find. So I apologize on that. But the original findings were that this could result in an average difference as large as 10 pins or more, right?
Sure.
And now speaking to people who have bowled on it more, like a JJ, it's much more narrow.
I think it is.
The 10 pins. I don't. Yeah. The gap of the 10 pins is what I mean, not the 10 pin. And again, usual spare conversion rates have been nearly eliminated. So in other words, sparing's the same. I mean, do I think we see those freaky little falls every now and then? Yes. But I'm not sure it's as often as we really think. Now,
and sorry, Carolyn, to interrupt, but in free fall, you have freaky falls too. How many times have you had the headpin fall back at you?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And by the way, they do finish their report in the fact of that USBC will certify string pin setters and string pin bowling as an independent category of equipment specs. That was of August 1st of 2023. And the final specifications reduced the string length to a minimum of 54 inches. Now, again, there might be some updates to this, but I do like at the end it said, additional testing is needed to determine if a conversion between string and free fall is reasonable. I have an opinion on that, and there's one thing I have about string pins. As a traditional bowler, for some reason, my head won't allow me to not think that if something is hanging and attached, how can it not help?
Yeah.
That's me though. That I just can't keep thinking that there isn't help. Right? So that's just something I'm going to have to get over. The other part of that is the having to be a little more high flush. I do agree with that. But you know what? I leave flat 10s in traditional as well on certain patterns. So what is the difference? The main thing I think we need to be open-minded to is exactly what you said and what Mike said and Cliff. If this is going to help a proprietor keep his bowling center open, less pin jams, a lower budget on employees where we can now focus on maybe some other areas of the bowling center, then you know what? We may just have to have a place for that. And again, you have a choice. If you want to bowl on 10 pins, you bowl on 10 pins. Traditional, or you bowl on the string, right?
Yeah.
Place for everyone.
And I think I do agree. And I remember that report from the USBC. And I think everyone that we've talked to talks about more testing being
Yes.
needed. And I think
Yes.
that as the years go on and there's more and more installs, we'll naturally have more testing. We'll naturally
Correct.
have more data. The only caveat to all this is I do have a little bit of a, like, the PBA and PWBA tours, right? I think before we see a lot of string pin competition, all that data and testing should be done. That's just my opinion, right?
Sure.
Because I think that that's the highest level of our game, and those are the best players. And I mean that's just, there should be some competition, but they don't have a choice, right? If the PWBA tournament says, "Hey, we're bowling here this weekend," that's what you're bowling on.
Right.
So. Yeah.
And I agree with that. I think there needs to be more testing before we start putting national titles or major
Right.
championships on string pin. But again, we're not in charge. But I
Nope.
would like to see a lot more testing,
Yeah.
and continued testing. To be honest, I'd like to see more testing and continued data on two-handed bowling of men and women. It's going to be a little different. We're
Yeah.
built differently.
Yes.
We're built differently. So men's two-handed bowling and women's two-handed bowling it's going to be a little different. And I'd love to see more data on that, as well as the string pins and how a traditional bowler and a two-handed bowler reacts on both. More data on that would be fantastic. Do we have anything in the chat? I want to hear what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, so a lot of people, there was Clint said that he bowled the Audi match match play in Florida and was really impressed with strings over a whole weekend. He also, similar to what JJ said, he saw maybe 2 string split spares that should not have happened. He was pleasantly surprised. It removes a need for re-racks. So Travis says,
it's a good one. Speeds up play.
Yeah. Travis says that one of the centers by him is switching to string pin.
Well, one of the other things JJ did mention too, and this was one too. He said, of course, we need to see more string pins in different centers to see, especially surfaces, right? But the one is there isn't the pin speed off the kickbacks.
Oh yeah, yep.
You see free fall. That's a big one too, because I think that's a big thing for two-handers. Right?
Yeah. And you brought up a great point of the testing one-handed versus two-handed just play. And I mentioned Eric earlier. Mike was also there last weekend. And TurboTech seems to be doing a lot of two-handed testing there and a lot of two-handed lessons and two-handed conversions. That was shocking to me, that there's a high number of bowlers that are converting to two-handed at all ages, right? Adults are doing it too. So yeah, that's definitely
and not that I'm not not that I'm against two-handed bowling, because I'm not, but that's also another thing where I think pro shops become very valuable, where if somebody does have their thumb in the ball, that fit, the grip, how to work out your thumb or whatever it be, needs to be spot on or close. I mean, that our hands are always fluctuating, right?
Yeah.
But need to start out where you can have a great experience. Not saying everybody's going to go two-handed, but if you are one-handed and can do what EJ Tackett is and your hand doesn't hurt, that's a beautiful thing right there. That's a beautiful thing. So hats off. But that's going to be a little bit more of another, I'm sure we're going to explore this again as more data comes out. Do we have, by the way, the shots of us on string?
You do. Yes, we do have those loaded in. All right. So who do you want to play? I have the Carolyn video and then the Marsha video. Which one do we want to play first?
Let's do Marsha. I think she bowled on traditional, if I'm not mistaken. There you go. Sounds a little different. High flush. Marsha was my helper because I didn't strike on the left lane. So I went to the right lane And I flat tenned a couple times. So I'm going to set this up for you a little bit. I did. I thought I threw it good. I flat tenned. And then I finally said, you know what? I'm going to pitch it a little bit. Now, I didn't have to do that on the left lane. I didn't have to do that. When I got the ball into the lane a little earlier, my ball still kicked back. So now this is the shot on the right lane on the string pins, getting the ball out onto the lane a little bit. High flush, but it's funny because in traditional, if you really slow my ball down and you watch it go through the pins, my ball normally wants to kind of go this way and to the right a little, right? So I got a lot of deflection. How I made it work, I don't know, but it did, right? In that video, if you see it, it actually kind of went straight back. And it almost looks as if all of the pins to the left of the head pin went off at the same time. It looks different.
It did.
It does.
Yeah.
So when Marcia's strike, it was the normal. It sounded the same. The 10 kicked back. There's just the subtle differences. It was still a strike. I'm just saying I needed to pitch it on the right lane, and I could still get away with getting into the lane earlier on the left lane and get the 10 back.
It is the look and the sound. You brought up both
Yes.
of those things, and I think anyone that's bowled for a number of years,
Right.
that is like Linda Barnes, who's in the chat. She said the sound is what gets her, or lack of. Yeah, it definitely. It's a weird sound to get used to.
It is.
Yeah,
It is. And again, I read a lane front to back. So I'm watching my ball and I'm going, man, that looked good off my man. It felt good. And boy, it looked like it died halfway down the lane, you know? So again, what's my go-to to kick the 10 back on a normal? So let me do that now on the string, and it worked. So be open-minded. If you're going to go out there and be bowling on string, be open-minded. You might have to pull one of the tricks out of your bag and change it up just a little bit. But I think we should be open-minded till we have more data, and still thank those proprietors for giving us a place to showcase our favorite sport, right?
Yeah, there was, I lost the chat. Oh, Dan said it. He kind of echoed what we were saying, but he'd rather play on strings than have his local centers close. And that's it, right?
I'm with you. Or you know what I think you may see a lot of too? If they have a VIP area, the VIP area might be string.
Yes.
Down here, the 24 lanes or 32 will be traditional. So now we got the best of both worlds.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to tie it up here. Quick scenario. When are you going to women's nationals?
I bowl with Leanne. So we are going at the end of June. We have a great group. We've been bowling together for a few years. So
have you bowled men's, or are you bowling men's?
I'm skipping men's this year. My opportunity would have been this weekend, but I was traveling for every weekend in May and I could not do another weekend. So skipping this year.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
This is what's been posed to me over the last 2 weeks as I've been traveling. Why different lane patterns for the women's championship and the men's? Now, if you look at the men's championship this year, which I bowled, and you look at the women's championship, which I bowled, night and day. The lady, oh my God, and I can't, you know what? I forgot her name. Just shot the 2-300.
Yes.
She was on her squad.
She
absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
And congratulations to her for making history. It is
off.
Naja is her name.
Yes, Naja. Yes. She bowled fantastic. I watched her shoot both of them. Here's my quick tidbit on that. There's been a new install at South Point, so I think we need to go with it this year, and let's just see what happens from here on. And that's all I'm going to say. Now, if you haven't bowled women's nationals yet, get your striking shoes on, because I sure did bowl just as good in singles when I shot 648 as I did when I shot 730 in doubles. So I'm just going to leave it there. And I don't think there's a magic ball. I think there's a certain place to play. It's going to be very apparent. You're going to get to the pocket, be patient, maybe a little tweak here and there. But do I think there's a magic ball? I do not. And good luck to anybody bowling women's. Men's, I don't think there's a magic ball. Make every spare you leave
I've
because the
heard
six is tough.
I've heard team event is like
Wait, let me
really
show you.
hard.
I was exhausted. I was exhausted after bowling 3 games.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, I just walked off after my 10th frame and I just kept going like this. What could I have done differently? I I mean, yeah, I could stay in a certain part of lane, which got me to the pocket, but it was one of those flat 10, 2-8, 4 pin, 2-5, flat 10, double. I'm like, oh my. But could have been worse. I shot 585, 586, something like that. Um, wow. Just I don't think if higher rev, I'm not sure there's that, high rev players are really bombing it. I think you got a lot of straighter players bombing it. I did like getting the ball out onto the lane a little bit. I think it conserved a little more energy. I watched Mark McDowell shoot fantastic. He kind of pitches it a little bit. So if you're getting ready to go to those 2 tournaments, uh, remain super patient because they're tough at men's. Remain super patient at women's because you'll be wondering how you're ring tenning all the time while the person next to you has the front 8.
Well,
So
I hope we have the front eight, Carolyn. No offense, but hey,
why do they have different patterns? Do you have an opinion on that?
oh, uh, you know, I don't know. And I don't know, and not, I don't know why the
Mhm.
Open has kind of gone down this route of being really,
A
really,
little tougher.
really
Mhm.
hard. And I know it's because, I guess I do know. It's because some of the higher level players that are making these teams, but there are rules that separate them too. So I don't know. It's interesting. Do you have an opinion on that?
I don't. I'm going to, and again, I'm going to probably wait till next year to maybe have an opinion on
Okay.
it. I
Yeah.
think, with changing of the lanes, could have had something to do with it, fresher surface, um, new panels, do change things. So I'm gonna wait. I do think men's has become, you got to be a shot maker without
Yeah.
a doubt. So again, I would encourage everyone to definitely put the trick in your bag of being able to repeat your shots and make what you leave. And then catch your double and triple, shoot your 630, 650. You're always going to have somebody on your team that probably breaks out and shoots 700 and do that. So I'm going to wait to see as a reasoning.
Wait, Carolyn, before we move on, because I know you want to wrap up the show, but Gloria had a question that I also wanted to ask.
Ooh,
Because women's championship, right? I'm planning out my arsenal at the moment.
okay.
And the last few years at women's, and then just looking at some of the videos, uh, you need that ball to start with, right? That bigger ball. For me, I have a lower rev rate. I'm playing to the right. Uh, I've found that something like an Ion Max might be too
Mhm.
much.
Okay.
So I've always kind of moved down. And Gloria brought up the hyperdrive.
Mhm.
And I'm also torn between the hyperdrive and the Origin EX, those two, of which one should be my first out ball at a shot like women's.
Okay. I have not thrown the new Origin as
Okay.
much. I have with the hyperdrive. I do think the hyperdrive becomes a little mid laney and not as much on the back.
Yep.
I actually, my 2 balls out of the bag to start are a Rotostar,
Yes.
and I'm sorry, I said Rotostar.
Attention star. Yeah.
Rockstar,
Oh,
Rockstar,
Rockstar.
Rockstar. Don't get
Rocks.
mad at me, Sean.
Oh, that's a good one.
My
Benchmarking.
Rockstar,
Right.
absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
And I also like the Physics Blackout
Okay.
with a
That's
fresh
yeah.
1000 on it. Now, difference in both. My Rockstar, little bit more back end for me, where my Physics is a little bit more even. So if it's too even and it's not enough, I know I go to my Rockstar in that direction. The Rockstar's too much, I go in the other direction. And then, of course, I have balls that I go up or down from there. I love an attention star. I still love the entire Hustle series.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think we have a lot to choose from, and I don't
No
think you can go
perfect ball.
wrong.
Yeah. No
Yep.
perfect ball.
Nope. I don't think you can go wrong. So I think everyone who bowls should make it simple. Your two favorites, a spare ball, one. So your two favorites,
Yep.
maybe one earlier, one longer, and pick another favorite for in between. There you go.
There
And
you
then
go,
change the
Gloria.
surface. And there you go. Change the
Yeah.
surface. One with maybe 2,000, 1,000, a 1,500 if you like, or whatever it be. You're not going to need 500. So, but that's what I would do, is keep it simple. But this was great tonight, Blair.
Yeah.
I love always talking to you. We have a little controversy each week, but we always try to end on a positive note. We love bowling. We want it to succeed. I want everybody to join next week. Leanne will have a special guest with her, and they are going to be talking about youth bowling, how we can all work on making it better. Who are some of our current youth bowlers getting ready to go to college and making their way out on the PBA and PWBA? So they're going to talk a little bit about that. And lastly, she will talk about how to continue to make the bowling community, the image positive, and grow in the right direction. So we got a lot of good things coming up. I think the week after that, we're going to do the old, I hate to say this one, but Hot Topics will be the week after that, when Leanne and I are back together. And some of the hot topics, you're not going to want to miss that one, because I think there's some hot topics that need to be addressed, some opinions from our audience, and let's see if we can change things. But thanks again, Blair. Thank you for everyone out there in Storm Country for joining Hall Pass. We love doing this, talking about all of bowling. But yes, of course, we put an emphasis on women, our community, how we can make everything better. And for crying out loud, let's all just try to be just a little bit more positive. Check us out next week, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Blair, take care of yourself. Hey, grab a friend. Go bowling.
We'll see you next week.